back with North Korea. This time we will be finishing off South Korea and looking towards the future. Now, I don't want my military spears that really stuck shuffling about like madmen. Now, we're trying to continue to advance on the south, and the main thing about that is the fact that since we've managed to sort of catch them off balance, we need to continue working to continue that surprise factor. If you've seen my USA States mod Let's Play as Illinois, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Once you get the ball rolling on an enemy, it's pretty easy to just continue stomping all over them and getting their territory in all manner of evil ways. Now, actually what I will do is, since the Korean forts are starting to take damage from my strategic bombing, but not in any way that makes them easy to take, I will actually switch the target of my Marines from Busan that we've just taken over to Seoul, and I will fetch 2 divisions from my Northern Guards, and I'll get them off orders, and I'll just strategically deploy them to Busan because I don't want any surprise naval invasions. I've also tried to continue the attack down south, but we are encountering some issues. Now, we do have a lot of factories that we captured from the enemy, so we're going to be building some multi-role fighters because we want to invade Japan later on. We're going to need a lot of fighters because Japan does build a pretty substantial air force, so we will have that be a top priority for us. We also want naval bombers because, of course, Japan is going to have a navy probably. Let's see. Actually, not that big of a navy. That's quite surprising, in fact. We're trying to bottle these guys up in this southern corner of Korea, southwest Korea, and we're getting a lot of overruns. As you can see, the enemy are quite disorganized from all the fighting that's been happening. Now that we've managed to take them from pretty much all angles, they will be in a terrible shape. Now, we've got more free military factories, so what are we lacking? We're lacking light mechanized and main battle tanks, so let's actually go and add a few main battle tanks and a lot of light mechanized. As you can see, our main problem right now is resources. In Korea, there aren't a lot of resources. There is a bit of steel and a bit of chromium. However, you are very lacking in terms of aluminum, tungsten, and pretty much everything else. So you want to have a pretty open trade route to someone. However, when you are part of the United States, it's not that easy. Now these guys, for some reason, are attacking the 38th parallel, which is not a good idea. Let me tell you that right now. It is not a good decision to attack the 38th parallel. Actually, this province is mine. It's in Pyongyang. So that's why they're attacking, because they want to reclaim our glorious land. However, I want them to stay there, and because eventually when we capture Seoul, all will be good. Now, we have managed to take over the south, and essentially everyone except you. I said everyone except you. I'm going to redeploy to the pocket, and then have this guy be the garrison of this island over here. Even though I don't expect anyone to actually try to take the island, I'll just put a garrison on it, just to be safe. And right now, I'm going to be essentially re-switching my tactical bombers to strategic bombing, because there aren't any ground combats happening. And when I do actually launch my offensive, I'll switch them back. And essentially what this will do is it will flatten a whole bunch of forts, and that's exactly what we want to happen. Now, the main problem is that sometimes strategic bombing isn't exactly that good because planes just decide to not attack. However, eventually we'll get a bit of an extra advantage. Now, we do have a few Marine units ready to attack into Seoul. That's pretty good. However, we want to do some reducing from the sides before that. For example, this province that is actually our land, we want to essentially deal as much damage as possible for that, and for that, it's actually wanting to be a thing. Once again. That should be enough. I wonder if they will actually participate, because they've also got the order of strategic bomb, and sometimes there's a bit of a buggy thing to that. Yeah, they're actually participating, so they are being slowly whittled down, and that's good, because even though it says that we're not really doing anything, we are, believe me, because of our Air Force damaging the organization. Eventually their units will be forced to retreat, even if it looks like they're just stomping us. Let's check out the casualties. We've lost 125,000. The Koreans have lost, or rather the South Koreans have lost double that. That was to be expected, honestly, because this is a very, very brutal fight. And actually, these guys, since the sort of South plan has gone to shit, we actually can just redeploy them to the border. Actually, they do not have a plan to go in, which may help explain why they aren't exactly getting a lot of bonuses. Now, they're trying to counterattack, however, that is excellent for us, because we'll be able to fight them where we don't have to deal with the level 10 forts, which is, well, a pretty damn good thing for us. And right now, we are just gonna try to keep the pressure up, because what is essential is to not allow them to negate their organization. Essentially, if we do that, we will be able to essentially beat them down because of our superior numbers that we have at this point. And that's going to be the end of them. Now, we will make the amphibious assault happen once our amphibious assault is actually ready. It does look like we will need a few more days, looks like 11, to get the ball rolling on that. Then we also want to make some attacks happen like this, just to continue, again, the damaging of enemy troops. And eventually it's also going to damage the forts. Not in any quick manner, as I'd like it, but still, it will be some damage from us. And the reason I'm doing an amphibious assault is because, of course, land forts do not work when you're attacking from the sea. So that's going to be a better ways to actually attack, despite the fact that, of course, we're going to be incurring the infamous amphibious penalties, which is not exactly the best thing, but still, it's necessary to actually have that sacrifice. And at this point, it's just going to be a game of throwing units at the line and hope that eventually they break. That is essentially what I'm doing. All of our units actually have signal abilities, so it's going to be pretty good to actually have my reinforcements be ever present. And again, as you can see, we are just slowly but surely eroding at them. There's actually a river over here, which is not helping. Our casualties will actually skyrocket in this part of the operation for very obvious reasons. I hope that's explained by DPR. I'm not sure where these guys are from. They are attacking us from the south, but that's not a big issue. Redeploying is kind of annoying, but still, we'll have to deal with that. So our naval invasion is almost ready. Unfortunately, it's pretty much going to take forever. Actually, this guy could participate in the naval invasion as well. He will be a sort of secondary group. So as you can see, we're doing a lot of damage, and we forced one of their divisions to retreat back to Seoul. And what that is eventually going to do is allow us to recapture our land, because this is our land. And of course, we are North Korea, we are all about our land. Okay. I'd really like some more fresh divisions throughout this battle. So, southern sort of flank is pretty well protected. Our strategic bombing is actually starting to put a lot of work down onto the fortifications over here. 6 damage levels is going to mean that most of the horribleness is gone. And right now, as you can see, we have managed to capture the area over here. And now it's just a matter of waiting, essentially, for our naval invasion to be ready. They are trying to attack us from Seoul, but it's not really working out for them. In fact, I could also try to make a pre-prompt attack on the capital itself. A few of their divisions are in a pretty bad way, and our naval invasion is almost ready, so even when they beat back my attack, which I fully expect them to do, then I can just move back in with a naval invasion as soon as the attack is finished. We're also going to make a secondary assault over here because they are allowing us the opportunity to do so. And actually, we are doing fairly well. Naval invasion, again, is being very slow to have to prepare, but once it is prepared, we will be able to use that to our fullest extent. Because now, we've been coming to is what I want to research. And up here, we're doing fairly well. There's only 2 divisions left, and since we've got a whole bunch of close air support going in, we will be able to do a lot of damage to them, even with the line fortifications. Over here, the damage to the levels is not as big as in Seoul. It's only, looks like 3. No, 2, even worse. So Seoul actually repulsed our attack, but we've got reserves, so we can just throw them back in and have that be a continuous sort of drag on their resources, just not allowing them to regain their organization and just continuing to pummel them pretty much. And now that we've got our naval invasion coming in, we'll be able to have a sort of secondary front to just put even more pressure down on them. And as you can see, some of their divisions are also being forced to retreat up north, which is going to be excellent for us because up north we've got a pretty big superiority in terms of numbers. We'll let them actually get outside because we want our... Really? Really? Damn it, that's a problem. Yeah, our Marines entered the battle as our infantry was getting out, so essentially what happened was our Marines didn't have the combat wings to enter, and then my infantry going out essentially triggered the Marines retreating because they could not get technically into the battle quick enough to reinforce and keep the battle going. However, it is really no problem because we can just continue to attack, and eventually we will be able to overwhelm them. Because as you can see right now, they are pretty much stuck in the capital. And what that means is that once a division reaches 0 organization, as I will demonstrate with this 11th division, once a division reaches 0 organization, which is going to happen from our bombing, poof, it disappears. Magic! Oh my god! Essentially what that is going to do is that once these frontline divisions all poof away and disappear, we'll just take the capital, and we won't have to fight them. All the other guys that are just in reserve. That is the danger of being surrounded onto one province. It can be tempting because, yeah, you cannot be sort of, in a way, you cannot be flanked, but that's the problem. Once you start losing, you cannot recover when you do not have any other parts. So as you can see right now, the only divisions that are left are gone, and so that is essentially the end of the war. So I'm going to speed it up and take all states. I already have a war score. So I will, I guess, just pass a turn, and then get that. So we have managed to take them over, and China actually invited us to a fact. See, because part of me wants to just go for balls deep and just go and try to take everything, but part of me wants to be a little bit smart about it, and of course the smart thing would be to be allied with China, who does have quite a lot of resources and quite a lot of factories. Yeah, I feel like I'll take it. I'll take it. So that means that I can basically disband my Northern Guard. I'll keep a few for Russia, just in case we ever get in a conflict with not all that. Just in case we ever get in a conflict with fuck my life with Russia, and yep, like that. And then we'll have supplies. Supply problems, of course, are being annoying because all the infrastructure was demolished by the fighting and bombing and everything. And as you can see, now we have a pretty huge amount of manpower. I will actually decrease my conscription level to extensive conscription because, as you can see, we've got our encouraged population growth, which means that our population grows at a pretty high rate. Pyongyang at the start of the game, I believe, has 10 million now, and right now they have 13 million. So essentially, we will have I'll just rebase my rockets and do other things. Of course, until I get the third rocket too much. Essentially, that allows us to have a lot of population, especially because South Korea also has a huge population, very concentrated, very heavily dense, urbanized country, so we can recruit a lot of people for our army. And then we will have a lot more factories, of course. Now, we need a lot of main battle tanks. We took a huge amount of losses in that regard. So we will have 34 factories working on it. Unfortunately, the main problem for that is the fact that we don't really have a lot of whatchamacallit, resources, and that's going to be a big problem. Now, we do have a lot of Marines now ready for another invasion. Ooh! No. Yeah, do that. No, I'll just take the Marines manually because AI. I apparently had literally everyone selected, which is a bit of a problem. And then we'll have them make a naval invasion plan against Japan. Now I'll have the 6 guys invader, 5% done, 27% done. I guess this guy's a little bit more experienced. And then this guy will go from over here to, how about Kokura? Just to avoid them reinforcing from the mainland, because we are at war with Japan, I believe. Wait, no, we aren't. Really? The US did not call in Japan. Okay. Now that is very interesting, actually. So that's because Japan, for some reason, is not in NATO. Okay. So we'll just justify a war goal. The invasion of Japan is going to be our next objective. And since we have managed to establish our superiority over Korea, unfortunately South Korea wouldn't have any airfields. So what we will be wanting to do is build an airfield in Busan as quickly as possible, and have that be a main priority along with repairing everything. So we'll just get everything underway. As you can see, I do have a few nuclear reactors that are going to be constructed. However, that's going to take a while because nuclear reactors are very expensive to construct. And I'll just get all the repairs underway as quickly as humanly possible. And I'll get my army in a sort of more semi-organized manner. I'll get a few of my division ready in Busan for the invasion of Japan, and I'll leave the majority. Well, actually, at this point, I'm not even sure if that's the majority, but I'll leave a lot of my army back to be a sort of safeguard against anything weird that the Americans can try. So if they are the US, that may be a problem. So far, the US Air Force has shown itself because of the fact that Japan is not in a war, they cannot use Japan as a base, which is excellent, of course. And then after Japan, I believe I'll go for Taiwan and the Philippines. Because, I mean, at this point, I'm at war with the US, so I can't really attract any more attention than I already have. That is really the priority. Just get off as many countries that are potentially my enemies as possible. And now Japan does probably have a pretty decent military. They do have quite a lot of forces on the earth, so let's actually go scout with my submarine fleet, because when you go and you manually order your ships around into an area, you can see their enemies. So as you can see, we can see that, for example, Ryukyu and Okinawa and generally the Ryukyu chain is fairly well fortified, but not necessarily too heavily so. And then in Kyushu over here, they also appear to have a decent amount of divisions, so we'll have to be pretty careful about invading this area of Japan. Now, actually they seem to not have as much over here, which might be good. Of course, Hiroshima is protected, but Hiroshima has a pretty interesting actual characteristic of when you're invading is because you can pretty much surround the province just by naval invasions, and you only need to capture this one extra province to actually completely surround Hiroshima. So what you can do is you can pair-drop into this one little province and then have all the other areas be taken by separate amphibious landings, and then have all these guys attack Hiroshima with a huge flanking bonus and a huge surrounding bonus, thus allowing you to have a much easier victory. Now, yeah, it does look like Japan is very heavily fortified, so we'll have to prepare very well for this invasion. In fact, a little bit better than for the invasion of South Korea. And yeah, we lost a lot of paratroopers in the invasion of South Korea, but that was absolutely to be expected because, again, South Korea had a very tough army to beat and a very, very good position to fight from. So that is why essentially we had all that problem attack there. Now, once I'll end this part, I will actually skip ahead up until I'm ready to invade Japan. And yeah, but in the meantime, I'm just going to be continuing to actually make this happen. Now, our submarines will go onto a search and destroy. No, not a search and destroy. A convoy raiding mission over here. With the nations that we are at war, I doubt that we'll have a problem with that. Now, how do we see that? Well, supposedly, there is a bonus map mode. And the map modes in Hearts of Iron 4 are one of the main problems. Really? You called him Poland? You called him fucking Poland? Oh, USA, USA. You little cunt. Yeah, essentially it's USA, Canada. Okay, so it's pretty standard. So they won't really have that many shipping lanes going through here. The USA is probably trading with Japan, however, we will probably not really be able to do much with our submarines over there, but still. Yeah, our fleet, I haven't really talked about my fleet because of the fact that my fleet is really useless. It's just a bunch of submarines that I've built. It's really nothing out of the ordinary. I don't appear to have really encountered combat with the South Korean fleet, which was existing but hasn't really played a part in the war because, yeah. So we do have an airfield underway over here. We'll select half. No, we'll select all, and then, oh right, we'll select half. I'll just get a lot of my fighters going. And of course, this is Millennium mod, so this is, of course, representative of a more modern timeline. So the stats of the airplanes are much different from what you would expect from Hearts of Iron. Of course, we go to the tech tree. You can see, so if we go to the tech tree, to the air map, to the air tree, you can see that, for example, the Generation 5 multi-role has 1,000 kilometers operational range, which is obviously very handy when you're using aircraft, because in the standard game it's very annoying with the air mode, or rather the air zone system, to just have your aircraft be in range of anything. It's pretty hard to do, and so it's pretty good to have just higher range aircraft. It's just so handy because you don't have to worry about, this zone is right next to your airfield, but it's hard raining because your aircraft had like 200 kilometer range. That's not good enough. And it's pretty much the standard game for you. Now, do have some paratroopers left, but not exactly that many. In fact, the only paratroopers I have left are my new ones that I've just acquired. Now, I do have a lot of divisions that have just taken so many catastrophic losses that they aren't really in shape to be regulars even in terms of experience. So I will get all of these divisions, form them up, and get them exercising because I want them at regular state. North Korea, being a manpower poor country, absolutely has to rely on quality instead of any kind of quantity. So it really doesn't make any sense for me not to get my troops and train them up. Now, these Northern Guards weren't into fighting, so of course they're pretty well off. And I'll get these guys exercising as well, and these guys exercising. And this will also give us a lot of army experience, however, unfortunately we don't really have any use for that. And we'll get as many troops exercising as possible, then once they are ready, I'll switch them back to their relative armies. Getting pretty hard to micromanage this many troops, however, it's still in a manageable state. By the way, in case you're wondering what the mod that turns the unit selection green is, it is clear unit selection. It is a very handy mod, and I highly suggest that you actually download it because it just allows you to see what you're doing a lot better. Because the selection of units in the standard game, as you may know, is very, very annoying to work with. UI in general just has a lot of problems. Now we have actually managed to make a naval battle happen with the Americans. That was actually an American submarine squadron that we attacked with our maritime patrol aircraft, but it wasn't really inclusive as it looks like. Now, how about we get some extra infantry tech? Infantry tech is actually very extensive in Millennium Dawn, which is one of the better parts about the mod. Along with the units, units definitely feel like you are make you feel like you're in control of a more modern army than just World War II. Despite the fact that you may think, of course, it's still technically the same, it just makes sense, and that's why I like it. And then these guys from Second Division, get them ready. Get the infantry ready. Now these guys have finished the training. These guys have almost finished, not entirely so though. So I'll just put them on a new army and avoiding wasting equipment in that regard. Also got some more Marines definitely reaching the front line. More convoy battles. Oh, that's actually a Polish convoy was attacked by our aircraft. It's very interesting. So as you can see, we've built up the airfield in Busan, and from here we'll probably be able to quite easily actually have range over the Japanese home islands, which is going to be good. We seem to have pretty good coverage. Looks like 86% efficiency for our fighters. And of course, 91 actually for our UAVs. Okay, I'm not sure why. They probably have a different. Wait, what? That's interesting. Why would these guys not have the range, but these guys? Oh, I don't even know. I don't even know. Sometimes Hearts of Iron is interesting. It's an interesting game. Ooh, naval combat. What is actually happening? A convoy attack. Okay, so let's get our submarines actually working, and they're going to be able to do good. Now, we do have some fighters coming in, it looks like, and they're going to help out with the, oh no, actually that was maritime patrol aircraft coming in, and we've sunk one Polish convoy. I mean, looks like Poland is trading with Japan? Yeah, looks like Poland is trading with Japan. I wonder what kind of resources they're trading. I wish the convoy convoy rating system was a little bit more fleshed out, and that it actually told you what kind of convoys you're attacking, and what kind of convoys you're sinking, and what kind of trade you're disrupting between two different nations. Because I feel like that would make the in general the naval naval raiding game and the naval sort of strategic warfare aspect a little bit more fun to play with. And I feel like that would be a pretty good thing. Of course, it might actually just be part of DLC, just like I believe in Hearts of Iron 3, there were a lot of improvements to that kind of a system, to the convoy raiding and the general convoys, shipping, air war, that kind of stuff. I believe there was a expansion for that, but again, I haven't played Hearts of Iron 3 all that much, so I don't really know the difference between the different Hearts of Iron 3 versions, which is, well, what you'd expect from a scrub lord like me. Now, our repairing of South Korea is going fairly well. Actually, the fortifications are being repaired as well. I mean, it isn't really that important to actually have the fortifications be complete anymore, but you can't actually dismantle forts, which is interesting. Of course, you don't really pay any kind of maintenance for them, so there's really no reason to dismantle them, which is kind of nice. Some more centimetric radars. So far, we haven't really come under air attack from anyone, so there's really no issue that we don't have any radars built up. But that might be, something to change, especially if the Americans start to lose the air bases of Japan. Now, can we actually see their air bases? Doesn't look like it, because Japan does appear to have an air force, so they would probably have some airfields as well. Now, we can see the airfields of our ally over here, China, but of course we can't see the airfields of neutral countries. Now, I wonder if there's actually a way to scout airfields. I'm not sure. Anyways, I'm gonna thank you all for watching. I hope you've been enjoying North Korea. I'll see you again tomorrow with some more Hearts of Iron 4. See you then.